Welcome to the Cheer Athlete. Today I have with me Matthew Holdridge, who is the coach and owner of Baystate Allstars in Millbury, Massachusetts, and also the coach of Shrewsbury High School located in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. And I'm very excited to talk to Matthew today regarding the differences and the similarities between All-Star and high school coaching. He's been a coach and involved in the cheer world for a long time, and so I'm happy to have you here and talk about cheerleading and your experience in cheerleading. Welcome to the podcast, Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, like I said, you've been coaching for a long time. How did you get started coaching in the All Star and in what? Tell me about your cheer career. Like, how'd you get here today?
So in high school, I started as a dancer, so I danced my entire life. And then in high school, I think where most people get their start, I started coaching our town, like Pop Warner League for years. So I coached them, went away to college, and continued coaching them through my freshman year of college, actually. And then I think it was my junior year of college, started coaching Allstars, and just haven't really looked back ever since. And, it's grown and changed drastically since, back in the early 2000s when I was in college to, where it is now. But yeah, I started doing that probably in 2002, and have been doing it ever since.
That's awesome. Um, ha, uh, so can you briefly talk on, like, because I know the change, I know a lot of changes have happened, but how have you seen the athleticism change in those last, which is unbelievable to me, 20 years?
I know it's unbelievable to me as well.
Uh,
I think based on athleticism, years ago it was just like, everybody for themselves in, a couple of divisions. And so now, 20 years later, there's, seven different levels. And the kids at every level, whether they're level one, level six, level seven, the athleticism and the skills that's required for them is incredible. And I think that it's great no matter what your level is, because years ago we used to turn people away, if they didn't have, a set skill set that we were looking for, which is sad in the industry. So now, being as there's all these levels, there really is a place for everybody, no matter if they are just beginning. Because I get kids who have never cheered before, who, at the end of a season are a great level one or a great level two athlete, and watching them develop all the way, through the leveling system to 4, 5, and 6, is incredible. And the amount of skills that they have to do in every level, even being at level one, and teaching them, the basics of tumbling and front and back walkovers and the basics of stunting, TikToks. It's just, different grips and things like that to make it legal. But it's still incredible to watch a beginner athlete, coming to terms and learning how to do those skills. And then still, doing those skills as they, get older and develop into the 4, 5, and 6s. Again, like I said, just with, different grips and at different heights and levels and things like that.
so this is, I don't know much about all-star cheerleading, as we were talking about.
Yep.
So it's done by levels, and that's skill level. It doesn't have to do with age.
It has to do with both, yeah. So even at level one, you can be a tiny level one or a senior level one, based on what your age is. So at Bay State, we try our best to split the kids based on their age and their level, because it still is important to most of the athletes to be around kids of their same, age and maturity level. Obviously, there's always the exception to the rule. But we do try to keep them with, kids that are in the same grade and things like that. So it's not like, one 14-year-old with, a dozen 8 or 9-year-olds, because that's not healthy for anybody. You know, nobody wants a 7 or 8-year-old necessarily with, 14-year-olds and what they're talking about. And the same works backwards. 14-year-olds want to be with 14-year-olds and not necessarily 8-year-olds. So it doesn't always work, unfortunately, but we do try our best to, because that is an important thing in the all-star world as well, making sure that they're doing the skills that they have and also with people of the same mindset and same age and maturity level and things like that.
That I always question that. I'm like, oh, that, the age difference in like just the peers, I mean, cheerleading in general for me was always the team. I mean, I love the skill of being, in the stunting and the tumbling and dance and jumps and all that. But the team bonding and the friendships that were formed, both for myself and from the teams that I coached, I think was the biggest part of it. And so I admire you for doing that, because I think that's a huge piece of, building those bonds and everything and team wise and trust. Your kids have to trust each other, and in order to do that, they have to be able to bond. So
Right, for sure.
So you also are coaching at Shrewsbury High School. How, first of all, how do you do it? That's a lot of time commitment. But how, because I see a lot of parents question, is high school worth it? And can you actually go on to cheer in college or to a higher level team if you are coaching or you're cheering in high school? What differences do you see and what similarities do you see? And, how are you finding and do you think you can progress in just cheerleading at high school or just cheerleading at Allstars? It's kind of a loaded question.
I definitely, so I've been at Shrewsbury now going into my 9th year. So we've gone through a lot of, every season playing with, what works best for our program too. And recently, over the last couple of years, I've had a huge influx of kids who have never cheered before. But at tryouts, like, years ago, it would be my first year. It was like you had to have a standing tuck to be on the team. And, then we had a JV team back then. And like, it was like you have to have a handspring to be on the JV team. And so the requirements were so high. And as the years have come and, All-Stars become so big, or AYF and Pop Warner was so big for a while and kids were doing that. And now I'm just seeing an influx of people who, maybe were dancers or maybe are coming from Shrewsbury AYF and things like that, who never really did the all-star route. So they didn't really, or do gymnastics. So they don't necessarily have the tumbling skills, but they showed extreme potential at tryouts. So up until this past year, actually, I really had never cut anybody. I can't remember a year where I had to like make drastic cuts since the beginning anyways, because I always believed that it was important for everybody that wanted to be there to at least be able to cheer on the sidelines. And so that's what we did for years and years and years. And this year we had almost 55 people at tryouts, which was like just huge. A ton for us. And I mean, I think the most kids we've had on a team were like 30. So we have 30 jackets, 30 warm-ups, 30 bags. Like, we didn't have enough to have 55 people. So unfortunately, I had to cut I think I cut maybe a dozen kids. And that was hard for me. And I told them, if this was any other year, you would have been on the team. You would have been able to cheer on the sidelines. But this year I had to kind of decide, who was going to be a game day team, who was going to compete, things like that. And at Shrewsbury, we have implemented, since Massachusetts started, the game day. It's a new division. I don't know if you're aware of that either, but it's great for us because there's no tumbling requirement for that. So it's a lot of just stunting and leading the crowd and things that we're able to work on and see improvement on at practices. And last year was our first year doing it, and the kids were reluctant about it. I was excited about doing it, but the kids loved it in the end. And, now we're going to do it again this season. So that's yes, tumbling is great. If you want to make the traditional competition team, tumbling is always going to be, important to us. But now with game day, it's if you can hit motions and we can see you using your mouth and saying the words, and you have potential, then then there's a spot for you. And we're very lucky at Shrewsbury to have a great booster club and a great support system. So like they are getting us new uniforms this season so we can outfit the team and, not be mixed matched on the sidelines and things like that. So I have been blessed to coach in a good school system and have a lot of support. And, they're behind me and the coaches of the high school and whatever we need.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm fortunate with that.
Yeah. So do you have both game day and traditional competitive?
Yeah, so we will have both this season. So obviously, like I said, tumbling is important to the traditional team. Not mandatory, based on if we need a certain stunt position or something like that. But obviously it does help because nowadays hitting the numbers on the score sheet and the rubric and things like that. And I go over that with the kids right at the beginning of the season, that it's not anything personal. It's, what Massachusetts tells us that we have to do. So yes, so that tumbling is important. So that we have that team, and then we have a game day team as well. And then there will be some girls that are just on the sideline, which is fine. And, I'm sure over the course of their high school career, they'll find their way onto competing on either the game day team or the traditional team.
Oh, I love that you do that. It gives so many kids an opportunity. It keeps them active, and I talk about this all the time. Like I was very shy growing up and like hated to be in front of a crowd, and cheerleading gave me that ability to do that. And when I competed, it was very different, but it still allowed me to kind of progress. And so the fact that you give kids the opportunity to be, I think I loved being in front of a game crowd, like the excitement of being in a game and learning that and I liked cheering sideline. And so,
Some people love that.
yeah. And I think it gives people kids a way to step out of their shells and like explore that. Whereas if they want to compete, hopefully they progress their skills and they get there, but it gives them the opportunity to do that. And so I think that's huge. Kudos to you.
I said to them, I was like, if I had it my way, I wouldn't cut any of you, I would, but that would also be if everybody was buying their own uniform and,
Right.
all their own equipment. But I knew that 55 uniforms was probably not going to be in the budget. I mean,
Yeah.
we were thinking like 30 when I originally requested them. So then I was like, we have 40 now. So that was still even a lot.
Yeah.
But hopefully I encouraged all of them they were mostly underclassmen. So, encourage them to keep training and, come back. Don't let that be the end of their wanting to cheer,
Yeah. That's awesome. So I think Massachusetts competitions are highly competitive. Like they're the last, and I haven't been to one in a while, so I need to fix that. But I keep going and looking at the different schools and see highlights of stuff. And the skills that they're doing at the high school level is way beyond what we were. I mean, it's like where we were in college back in 2009.
Yeah, exactly.
And so how are you seeing the difference? Like, do you see a major difference between, and I can't compare the level, obviously, but say a level, I'm guessing level 4 through 7 or 5 through 7 and a varsity high school team? Like what's the difference between that?
So honestly, like nowadays, every year they're allowing us to do more and more in high school. So years ago, before I started coaching, like, doubling down from stunts was allowed. And then they, got rid of that for safety reasons and things like that. But now every year we're being allowed to do more and more level 5 and 6 skills even. So, I mean, I'm seeing more of a similarity between Allstar, the upper levels of Allstar and high school than differences because, now first years ago, we weren't allowed to flip at all in pyramids. Then we were allowed to flip being held on both sides by preps. Now we're allowed to be flipping, being held on by one side. We're allowed to flip and twist now, which is, an upper level 6 skill in All-Star. So, I mean, they're asking more and more, we're asking more and more of, and those are like the traditional competition teams. So, on top of the advanced tumbling skills that, I was talking about, we're now incorporating upper level stunting skills. Years ago, we weren't allowed to do high to high TikToks. A couple years ago, that became legal. So I'm seeing more and more similarities between All-Star and high school than differences, honestly. Even now, high school is an all music routine. So like, I mean, yeah, we have like 2 8 counts of a cheer that we have to do. But I mean, when I was a kid, we had that whole middle section of our routine that was a cheer.
Yeah.
And the kids nowadays will have no idea what what that was like to have to do the cheer in the middle of your routine.
I didn't know they changed that either. So
yeah, it's wild. And so I just see a lot of, like I said, similarities versus differences, which is good because I think that an all music routine, I think, shows extreme athleticism for our sport because they are going for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And it's high energy, the tumbling and the jumping and nonstop. Whereas the cheer used to, slow down and hopefully be a little bit of a breather, even though you had to use your words and your voice. But it was like a chill part of the routine. Now it's like go until the end, which is more exciting. And especially in Massachusetts, in the state, I mean, there are so many great high school programs that have been great for years, and it's very fun and exciting to watch.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the athleticism again. Like you just said, that they really need that conditioning for those 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes and 15 seconds that they can go all out. And it makes me want to scream more. Don't forget to breathe in the middle of it.
I know.
Just don't think about the go. Yeah. So final question, I guess, on really the similarities on that. Do you feel that do you have a lot of kids from Shrewsbury specifically that or do you have kids that want to go on and cheer for college, whether or not they do? Like, do you have because one thing I found at Holy Cross, a lot of kids would come in and say, like, I'm just burnt out, I don't want to do this anymore. A lot of I'd reach out to cheerleaders and no, I'm good, I don't want to cheer anymore because I'm burnt out from high school. Do you find that a lot of kids want to go on what high school or All-Star, and because they're similar, like, is there, if they want to go and compete at a collegiate level or a more advanced All-Star level, are they continuing to do that, whether burnout or skill level wise?
So years ago, I used to also coach Assumption in Worcester, and it was the same thing as you just said for Holy Cross. I would get a list of this huge list of people that were cheerleaders, whether it be All-Star or high school, and I would reach out to every single one of them. And back then, they were all burnt out. Nobody wanted to cheer in college. I had a very small team, and a lot of the team were like people that I either coached at Baystate or I had worked with from other high schools that went on to Assumption that I like just knew that were like, yeah, like we'll come and cheer. And we were very small for my whole time at Assumption. Now I'm happy to see a lot of my kids from Baystate and from Shrewsbury are going on to cheer and try out for their college teams. I think that they're reluctant at first and they're nervous about being able to balance everything and balance school and cheer. But I mean, I'm just a big advocate that I encourage them to, at least try it. Like, they've done it their entire lives. Why are they going to stop, now that they're in college? Especially, I have a lot of kids that go to great schools that have great programs that I'm friends with, the coaches of those programs. And I'm like, you're going to love it. You're going to be great. You're going to compete down in Daytona. It's going to be a great experience. And so far, I mean, this year I have a lot of kids that are going on to cheer at some good schools. And I have some kids that I'm still in touch with that have cheered. This will be their senior year, that have cheered the entire time and loved every second of it, and go down to Daytona, and a couple that have won Daytona. And I mean, it is possible to be, a good student and to be an athlete. They've done it their entire lives. There's
Yeah.
no difference once they go to college, except that they're living away from home,
Yeah.
and they want to be adults and things like that. But I'm hoping that my kids that are going this year will stick with it, because I've encouraged them and told them that it will be good for them.
Yeah.
And they'll regret it if they don't do it at the end of their college career.
That's a thing I think that I hope to relay. Like, I cheered through college, but my senior year I didn't try out. I had cheered, I went to Northeastern, it was 5 years, and so I cheered for 4 years and had a great experience and all that. And in the end, I was like, all right, I have to focus on my PT stuff and pay attention. Um, and it's not that I regret it, because I wouldn't have gotten, like, I like where I ended up and all that stuff, but I'm like, oh, I missed that one last chance, and so I hope that kids continue on, because I mean, there are some adult teams out there now, but they're far between, and it's harder. And once you stop, you just stop, and yes, you get into life, and there's a lot more than cheerleading out there in life, but there's nothing like cheerleading either.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure. For
so do
sure.
it as
And
long as you can.
it's been, I say that all the time, like, it's such a huge part of your life, and you're not going to do it forever. So, you know, do it while you can and enjoy it while you can. And while you're 18, 19, 20, like, that's the time to do it, versus, growing up and
Yeah,
being like, oh, my body just cannot do that stuff anymore.
yeah. What are there any tips that you would give whether high school or college, like what are three main things that, not high school, college, high school or all-star, that would help them improve, whether like to, do better at a tryout, or do better, like what things should they be focusing on outside of the cheer gym, or are there skills that they can do, in this cheer gym too, that they need to kind of focus on? What's most
So
important?
for Shrewsbury, I know a lot of the kids' goals are obviously to make the traditional competition team. Um, so I tell them to train for that. And that means, like, not in May decide that they, need to learn how to do a handspring, because it's not going to happen overnight. The amount of phone calls or emails that I get from kids that are trying out for their high school teams in May and June, and they need to get that handspring every year, it's the same thing, is crazy. So, I mean, if they know that this is the path that they want to be on, and they want to be on whatever the team is, whatever high school they go to, whatever gym they're at, it's the same thing. Like, make sure that you're in the gym, taking classes, working on your skills, whether that means a private lesson, whether that means a tumbling class, anything. I mean, even I tell some of my flyers on my high school team, like, get in the gym and stretch out, because, like, you need to have flexibility. We're only putting up 2 or 3 stunts, and that's going to be whoever has the prettiest position in the air. Because again, those are requirements on the score sheets, just like tumbling, doing things to body positions are requirements. So, like, knowing what their role would be on a team and capitalizing on that, I guess, is important. So if that means that they need to be the best base or the best back spot, making sure that they're working out and, conditioning their bodies to do that. And at Shrewsbury, I do have some people where that's their go-to and that's their specialty, and they're going to be the best base, or they're going to be the best back spot that I need. And then some people may not have the tumbling, but they're going to be a great flyer for us. So knowing their role, but also knowing that if they have that tumbling in their back pocket, that's going to strengthen their case for a reason why they should be on the team. I try to tell them, I wish that everybody could be on the team. I don't want to have to make the decisions of how many we're competing and having to break parts. Like, that's not what I want to do at the end of the day. And, some of them don't understand that, but there are going to be people that are upset, unfortunately, because we have to follow this little piece of paper that's actually sitting right here that I look at every day to how many people can we put on the floor, because these are the amount of skills that we have. And the rubric dictates that this is what we have to do. So, I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, everybody wants to be competitive. So we follow the rubric to a T. So I guess going back to what they could do is just prepare themselves, and not in May when
Yeah.
tryouts are in June. Like, it's a year-long thing. At Baystate, I mean, we have most of our kids are set in weekly private lessons. Like, they take the same lesson with the same instructor at the same time and day every single week, in hopes of obviously, improving. And obviously they do, because they're working on it consistently. And I think that's the key, is consistency. And that also shows, that you want to get better and you're willing to put in the work. And when it comes to, at least myself, seeing somebody that's putting in the work, that says a lot as well, whether you have the skill or not. Just knowing that you're willing to try and commit and take the extra time and go the extra mile. I think that's important to coaches. I know it's important to me. I'm sure it's important to, other coaches throughout other gyms and high schools as well.
Yeah. Consistency, do the work, and start. That it's a year-round process. It doesn't happen just at the end, last minute.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely, for most people, they dedicate their lives to cheering. So, especially if you're somebody who maybe falls in love with the sport later in life and you're behind the 8 ball, like, once you decide, like, talk to the coach. Every coach has resources for you. They will tell you, the closest gym, or they have a friend or somebody that's willing to do a private lesson with you. I mean, every coach would want to see their athletes successful. So if you reach out to them, email them, call them, I'm sure they would be more than happy to point you in the right direction so that they can see that athlete achieve, whatever their goal may be.
I think those are key. I think we forget from the outside, like, from coaching perspective, like, coaches, you put so much time and effort into, all right, number one, making the team come together and be cohesive. Number two, like, the score sheet, and maybe not in this order, but you have to build your routine around your score sheet, and really know, okay, what can each person, how can they fill that role, and how much time and effort goes into that, and that you're not actually out to get anybody. You actually care about your athletes.
Yeah,
you want to see them succeed, and there's only X amount of spaces available on the competition floor, and how do you make that all flow together for each and every aspect of it? And there's a lot of pieces that come together in a cheer routine that are minute but huge. And so take, just for the fact that you say, your score sheet's there and you're looking at it all the time, like, how can you fill that? Like, you're constantly doing that. And I don't think we give coaches enough credit for that. So I think that's a good point. Like, you care about your athletes. We care, like, my athletes were my kids, and
right.
You want to see them succeed. Like, I hated when they got injured. I wanted to have them be happy in cheering and enjoy the process, but sometimes things happen in life that are going to make you unhappy, and you have to and then, can you do the work for it? And how can I encourage you? And how can I support you along that way? So it's a great reminder for people.
Yeah, I just think that that's the biggest misconception about coaches or gym owners or whatever. I mean, we don't want to see any kids, or parents for that matter, unhappy, obviously, at the end of the day. But we also do need to make difficult decisions. And so, 1 year it may go in your athlete's favor, and, 1 year it may not be the right fit to the puzzle.
Right.
At least speaking for myself, that's a huge, just like, I hate when people think that at the end of the day, my goal is to, like, hurt or upset a child. obviously I wouldn't do this if I didn't love children and love the sport of cheerleading. So um, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're put in difficult positions, especially when we have so much to choose from, and finding the right
Right.
choice. And it might be a process. And sometimes it starts as one thing and then something doesn't work. And this individual might make something work a little bit better. And it's at the end of the day trying to figure out the right fit to the
Comment.
puzzle.
Right. It's a lot of work.
It is.
Yeah. So either Baystate or Shrewsbury, what do you guys got going on? I'm assuming more, well, I'm assuming more Baystate, but do you guys have any fundraiser or anything like, or upcoming clinics and stuff like, yeah, or camps? What's going on with you
Yeah,
guys?
so right now, actually today, this week has been we've had camps this entire week. So we actually have 3 locations. We have one in Millbury, one in Woburn, and one a new one in Plastow, New Hampshire. So we've been bringing together the coaches of all 3 gyms and going to all of the locations and doing just like kind of like clinics this week. So all of our athletes can get to learn some of the other coaches from the other locations that they only get to see at competitions on the weekends, and hear their input and how they do things, and get spotted from somebody different, because sometimes I believe that the athletes get complacent in listening to their coach over and over and over. So I think bringing in other voices, whether that voice is saying the exact same thing, it's somebody else saying it, so it might just click a little differently in their brains. So that's what we've been doing this week is a lot of team bonding and getting to know the different staffs, and working on our tumbling and our stunting technique and things like that. Shrewsbury, we are not allowed to do anything until the end of the summer when the season starts. So we will probably be just doing a camp in July, where again, everybody will get to learn each other. We'll just work on basics of getting our stunt groups together and things like that. And then next week, we're closed for 4th of July. So that's like our 1 week off for the summer. And then when we get back, we just keep grinding. We have a lot of like pyramid and stunt choreography coming up, putting our routines together, things like that, getting ready for the season. It's a never ending process.
I know. It's constant. And it kind of blows my mind, but I think I'm getting used to the idea that it's that it just kind of flows, like you finish Worlds is the end, right? Of the
Yeah, so Worlds
competition.
is the end of April, and
Yeah.
then Summit is like that first weekend in May.
Yeah.
And then it's literally, for us anyways, I don't know what it's like everywhere, but for the month of May, we just do classes. So that's like our chill month in the gym, where the kids can come 4 days a week, 1 day a week, 0 days a week, whatever they want. And it's just like fun tumbling classes, stunting classes, we do every type of class. And that's when we do our evaluations. And then in June, we start all over. So, I mean, May's our chill month, but, we're still staying active and working on our skills and things like that. And then that first week of June is always when we meet our teams, and it's like, start all over. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here's the next 12 months.
Wow. Yeah. It's a lot. So I have to rethink my strength and conditioning plan and when the downtime is. I have to. That's a because I one thing I preach is like, okay, you need to, like you said, you've got to do the work outside the gym. You have to do the stretching. You have to the flexibility work, the strength training, and all that doesn't happen in the cheer gym. I mean, hopefully, if there's conditioning, but as a group, you do that. But like to get things where you want to, it has to be progressive through the year, and you have to take that time to do that. And you can there's only so much time in the gym, with your team that you have.
Right.
And so I usually preach like, okay, during your off season is when you're going to really build strength, but that's I have to rephrase that because
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, every high school is a little bit different. Some only do the fall season, which ends, right before Thanksgiving. So then they do have a really big off season.
Yeah.
From like December all the way until tryouts in June. So that's a lot of time. I have a lot of multi-talented athletes that do other sports, whether it be gymnastics or track and field,
Yeah.
softball. A lot of like they're just busy. So they're like athletic all around. They're great cheerleaders,
Yeah.
and then they're on the softball field or things like that. We have done at Shrewsbury, we have done both seasons. Every year is a little bit different, based on the interest. I mean, now having as much interest as we've had, maybe we will have a basketball season, which will be good for the kids that don't do another sport.
Yeah.
And it's good just to keep strengthening and conditioning and, working on those stunts and things like that, and tumbling in the off season from, the fall, super heavy competitive season in Massachusetts.
Yeah. And I think I think it's great that they are involved in other sports like softball, because it creates a whole different coordination. I hear in coordination you get from softball is absolutely going to carry over to catching a person,
Right, for sure.
and paying attention, and all of the different skill levels that come with that. So I think that's awesome, and that's been shown to help injury prevention and all that stuff. So this is awesome. For me, it's been a great learning conversation, and I applaud you for everything you're doing, and the longevity that you've had in the cheer industry and the cheer world, and how your programs are growing, and everything you're doing. So thank you so much for being here. How can people reach you if they want to connect with you? What's the best way for them to?
They can email me. My email address is baystate.matthew, matthagew, or they can always reach me at the gym, 508-845-5678. Very easy for cheerleaders. And those are probably the two easiest ways to get directly right in contact with me.
Cool. And I know Baystate, I've seen you on social. I follow you on social, so I'll keep that in there, and the Instagram stuff too. So
yeah, Instagram, Facebook,
yeah,
all the things.
Did you get that phone number? Like, were you able to plan that yourself?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we actually requested it years and years ago, and it's that was, I don't know, we probably got that when we started. I think that it's been with us for 18 years or so.
Wow.
And it's a great, easy way to remember.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you again for being here. I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll connect. Maybe we'll I'm going to follow and see what happens through the year and how you guys do, and maybe we can connect again next year and just talk about how this year went and all the awesome things that you guys got going on.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love that.
That concludes another episode of The Cheer Athlete. Everyone, have a great day. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out. Take life one step at a time. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. Have a good day.